Well, welcome to Uncut and Unfiltered Cosmetology Insights with Nathan Shaw, where we help aspiring and current beauty professionals master the business and craft of cosmetology so that you can build a successful, long lasting career. Your guide is Nathan Shaw. He's a dedicated educator and working man's hairdresser who successfully built his cosmetology schools from his earnings from behind the chair. And now he generously shares his deep industry experience to challenge misconceptions and to teach you practical and crucial skills to help you manage your career, whether you're just starting or you're already in the business and you want to continue to grow. I'm your host, Andy Traub, and today we're going to talk about how to handle something that is every single person who has a client is going to need to deal with this day in and day out. And that is really, we call it sort of chair talk, which is how do you handle the conversations you have while you're doing your job? So Nathan, thanks for helping us today.
Happy to.
You know, it's an interesting dynamic because I think about there's certain jobs that you don't talk with your client. You know, if you ordered food and you're the waiter, you don't sit there for 30 minutes while they make the food. You can go help another table, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If someone is, your doctor, it's like they might, pop in for that little bit of time, but the other time the nurse is taking care of them. It's not like I'm going to talk with them for this whole time. It is way more like a therapist where it's like, I'm buying time to talk to you, right? That's really what therapy is. And they get a bonus haircut in the process, right?
Yep.
So let's first talk about this. How do you, as a person who runs and owns schools to teach cosmetology, how do you and your team of instructors help prepare people that are going to be in the industry to deal with the reality of you're going to have people talking to you about all kinds of stuff?
Yeah. Well, we do it in a few different ways. Number one, we actually do have classes where we talk about that customer service part, the client interaction, the communication part of the service. Because yeah, they know when they're going to school, it's like I'm going to be doing their hair, doing their nails or skin. But like sometimes they don't think about like how much the communication piece is a big part of what's happening during the service.
Yeah.
And so we touch on that. And then of course, when they're out, when they, kind of graduate on in school past the foundations to where they're working on real guests, that's something instructors help model with them and kind of help them out with on a case by case basis.
Yeah. I think that it can be such a, and I don't want to make this just about money, but you need to make money. So I think it can be such a massive help to your business, whether you're just getting into the business or you're already in the business, if you're really good at this skill. And I
Absolutely.
also think it can really, really hurt your business if you're bad at it. And I think about a few people that I know that I've had do my hair, and um, I the hair was fine, but I didn't want to talk to this person again. It just was not a great experience from a relationship standpoint. And so it's not buying a lawnmower. It's like, does it either work, cuts my grass or not? No, there's a relational aspect to this. So I think someone who gets really good at this can really help their career. So let's talk about some things you need to prepare yourself for. Let's start with a positive one. And you had shared kind of a powerful example of this, that oftentimes a person who is providing a cosmetology service can be someone that people feel really safe to share good news with.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting because, we don't talk about this a lot in life. I mean, there's terms like, oh, they're just haters, right? If you have some good news and someone kind of like, they're like, must be nice. So they act like you have a
They
different
don't celebrate you.
circumstance. Yeah. They don't celebrate
Yeah.
your wins, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have a lot of people that don't want to do that. And even people that we think should, that are close to us, some of those people, there's too much comparison, I think, that happens with people. And so being that person that can like celebrate their good news, it's kind of a rare thing. And if, it's so some people will share that with you as their stylist because they know it's safe because of that interaction you have. And the fact that, you don't have any skin on the game to feel jealous of their good news, so to speak, right?
Yeah. 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 We were in preparations, we were talking about the idea of also just seeding, like implanting positivity into the conversation. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I want to talk about the other side of the experience, though, is when people share difficult things. A lot of times, people will confide in their, hairdresser, whoever it might be. What is your advice to those so they can be prepared for when people share hard things?
I think it's really just learning to practice empathy, understanding, just the skill of listening. I know that sounds kind of vague, but it's being there because some people aren't expecting you to fix it, but they need to tell somebody,
Hmm.
right? And tell somebody that's not going to judge the situation or try to solve the situation, but just will listen with empathy and understanding.
Yeah, you touched on a couple things that I think are easy. They're very easy to do, and they're also really bad for the client, which is number one, don't try to fix it, right? Don't say, oh, well, here's exactly what you should do. Now, you might say, hey, are you open to some advice on that? I've had a similar experience. And that's a way to say, hey, are you okay if I share maybe something that you might consider trying
Yeah.
versus like, oh, you just need to do this. Like,
Right.
oh, okay. I really wasn't looking for you to say anything. I just wanted to share it, right? And the other approach if someone shares something is to not go, oh yeah, I had the exact same thing happen, and then you go on your story. It's like they weren't looking for, yeah, that happened to me, but it was worse. Because
Yeah.
then that's not really listening. That's sort of stealing their story, right, if you will. But also that just that empathy, um, not judgment, not like I can't believe you did that. And I love that empathy, the idea of saying that must be really hard, or I'm sorry that's happened to you, or is there anything I can do to help? Those are empathetic statements. So let's talk about another interesting aspect of this, and it's sort of the opposite of the positive or the negative, which is silence. Like, are there situations where people just sit in the chair and you need to just let them not talk?
Absolutely. We talk a lot about that. What we said at the beginning of this conversation is I feel a style of success is based more on their soft skills, meaning their people skills, than it is on their technical skills of doing hair. And it doesn't mean you
Mm.
don't work on your technical skills, right?
Right, 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 right.
But your ability to read the room, read the client, and like, what's the vibe they're giving off? Like, what are you feeling? Are they wanting to talk? Are you paying any attention to that? Um, it's one of those deals that like sometimes it'll be very obvious someone doesn't want to talk, and other times I teach our students you need to ask just enough questions to see are they just giving you like one word answers, and they're going back
Yeah,
to you know in the early days it was going back to the magazines that we had out. Now it's like they go back to scrolling on their phone, right? It's like if that's what they want to do, they probably are not in the conversationalist mood, and you need to let them just zone out while you do their hair.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that might just be the blessing they need that day to just go, you know what? I was able to just zone out and I didn't have to listen to my kids asking me for this or that, or my boss saying this or this. I was able to just scroll and be left alone. And again, some people just have different personalities. They're very chatty and other people are quiet. And it's not a good experience as someone who wants to be quiet is asked question after question after question. So being comfortable with silence, that's interesting. Um, what are some practical ways that you can get someone who's chatty to sort of be done with the appointment, move on to rebooking? Like you mentioned something about if you work in a salon as part of a team, how this is easier.
Yeah. I think it's because sometimes you do feel like you just got to cut them off. And obviously, there's ways to that. You're not going to just bluntly be like, okay, stop, but, but you've got to find a way to be like, hey, hold that thought. Let's get you rebooked. Or,
Yeah,
it's like, I'd love to hear more about this next time you come in. Let's get you rebooked now because you may have another guest waiting, right? And that conversation
yeah,
can't just keep running into their time as well as your schedule. Um, but I love having a team. That's why I prefer personally being in a salon environment rather than a suite is because if you have someone at the front desk, you can talk to them as you walk them up there and then kind of turn them over to that front desk person like, hey, Mary's going to get you rebooked. She's going to get you set up for your next appointment and take care of you. And it's kind of a natural transition where it's like, okay, I've got to step away because it's now Mary's part to finish your appointment
hmm
here, right?
yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, there's something very practical about, okay, we're done with this. Now we're going to move over here. And in that movement, it's literally a handoff.
Exactly.
It's literally, I'm giving you this person or you to this person. They will now take care of it. And I think that that's helpful. That's healthy. Um, and I do think that there's practical things that people can learn and do when it comes to just having healthy conversations. And that is initiating positive conversations versus negative. And again, I've been in, who knows how many times in my life I've gotten my haircut at different places. But I know that there are environments where even if my stylist was great, I've had this once, she was great, but the people around her were very negative. The other people who worked at the salon, it was just a lot of, even the workers would talk to each other while they were cutting hair
Mm-hmm.
and styling hair. And it was just not positive. Right. And not that it was like so and so is horrible, but it was just complaining about stuff all the time. Right. Um, I have no memories of like them sharing good things, and I wonder how can a stylist guide more positive conversations, even if people have a tendency to complain. I think by default, some people. How can they guide their client to have a more, maybe they are having a legitimately bad day, but how can a stylist, because they've got 20 plus minutes to fill, sometimes much, much more, how can they guide a positive interaction?
I think it comes with like practicing being positive and asking about positive things. You can ask them questions. We talked about this, like what's something exciting happening in your life right now. I talk a lot in our classes about how we all know certain people that are just like balls of positive energy, and you want to be around them because they lift you up. And similarly, we know, as we call them, I call them energy vampires. You've probably heard that term before, where you go around them, they're so negative, just like, oh, I've got to get away from this person. They're sucking the joy out of my day.
Yeah.
But that's some of that's a choice. And yes, it takes practice. Maybe you're not naturally just the bubbliest, happiest person, but
Yeah.
you can practice. It's really curiosity, being curious about people in a positive way.
Yeah.
And if you're curious about people, people want to be around that. I have two great examples in siblings. My brother that got into hair first, Dustin, he was a great stylist, so technically he was great. But one of the things that made him so successful was that he had that type of charisma and energy where people want to be around him because he took interest in them.
Yeah.
Years later, it's been decades since he was in the area, people still talk about like, oh, I used to get my hair done by your brother Dustin. It was so great. And it's more about him as the person than like my hair was the best in the world. And he did do good hair.
They remember how they felt when they were around
100%.
him. And I'm around youth sports a lot, and I try to teach parents now that my son is literally, this is like his last week of youth sports ever. He's graduating high school and stuff. Is I tell as many adults as will listen to me, even if they don't ask, I'll say, kids will remember how they felt. They won't remember the score. And I think with that example of like, people may not remember what the cut was that they got, but they will remember how they felt, right? How they felt when they were with you.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And so how can you recreate that feeling again and again and again? And I think that you can. I think that no matter what that person brings, you can actually make it a positive experience. I have a practice when I'm around really negative people. I ran into one recently, is I force myself to just ask them super positive questions and to celebrate. Like there was a person that he wasn't so negative, but I just wanted to have a positive conversation. And I was with them last week, and I said, hey, tell me a story, because they were retired and they used to work for like the highway department. And I said, hey, tell me a cool story, like one of your favorite experiences when you had your job. And like, there's no way they're going to be negative when you say that. Like, what's one of your favorite bosses you've ever worked? So if someone comes in and says, my boss is a da da da, and you go, man, I'm sorry, Mary, that sucks. That sucks. Who's been your favorite boss or
Right.
bosses? They could talk for 45 minutes about their favorite bosses,
Yeah.
and they're going to be like, Nathan, thank you so much for that great conversation. And you're like, yeah, I asked 2 questions and I let you talk for 45 minutes, but it was positive.
Exactly.
And I think that should be your goal. Do you want to have people have positive experiences? Of course.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you doing to create that? Let's also talk about this. And this is kind of a big switch, but You talk about, and there's actually specific training to help people in this industry identify abuse and things like that. What would your advice be to people to prepare them for maybe when someone discloses something?
It can be, I think, especially the first times it happens, it's a little bit jarring. It's a little bit, I don't know if shocking is the right word, but sometimes you're like, wow, I can't believe they just shared this with me. But it's really learning to be, I want to say poker face. You don't want to look completely shocked necessarily, but
Right.
like also just learning to practice empathy and understanding because they're not necessarily looking for you to solve it or for you to give them advice, but just sometimes they, again, you're the only outlet they have to tell you someone something negative that's happened or something that's, pretty heavy, and really practicing that understanding and just the practice of empathy.
Yeah. I'm also thinking about this is that it's not your job to fix it. I mean, literally, your job is to help them with whatever service you provide, and whether that's nails or whatever it might be. Uh, that can be the other difficult thing is you like to take care of people. You're in this industry because you want people to feel better about themselves. And
Absolutely.
if someone discloses something and you're like, man, I really wish I could help with that. If you're a person of faith, maybe all you can say is, well, I'm sorry, and I'll be praying for that. You know, but there's sometimes you can't help other than just to be a safe place for them to listen, or to share. You know what I mean? But there are specific trainings because people will disclose things like domestic abuse that you want people to be prepared to address those things, right?
Yeah, because people in domestic abuse aren't going to report it. Yeah, like if you can recognize those signs, maybe there's a way you can like, and you hate to be that person that might have to report it, but if you know it's happening and someone's unsafe, whether it's the same with like trafficking, right? If they do some
Yeah,
trainings to recognize signs of trafficking, and
yeah.
that's the only way to get the person out of the situation.
Yeah, and I appreciate the way you said that. I think that no one wants to experience, um, let's say you find out that someone that you is a regular customer um, is in a domestic abuse situation. No one wants to have to experience that, but I also think that everyone wants to help someone in that situation. So even though you might not want it to be in that situation where you have to deal with it, you do want to be a person who can help and knows how to help, you know? And so I actually had this conversation the other day with my kids because I have a tendency to call 911 a lot. And let me explain that. Not because there's fires everywhere and violence, but like I call 911. Like the other day, there was most of the time it's stuff on the road. So I take this road from my house to the town just north of me. It's a very, very busy highway. And I don't know why, but there's just always dangerous stuff that is on this highway. So I called the other day, I called 911 because I don't want to like stop and look up the phone number for the police department. I call 911, like, what's your emergency? And I said, there's a shovel in the far right lane right before you get to the McEwen exit and da 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 da. And they're like, thank you. We'll get someone on that. And the reason I am okay making that call is because I want to protect people, right? And it's like, I use that example because you should know and be prepared for like, who do I call? What do I need to do when this situation arises? And so, is that partly also on the owner to prepare their staff for how to address those things?
I think a well-run salon is going to have an owner that's aware of that and is going to help, provide the tools and access to the training. They don't have to do the training. Like say, there's groups out there that do the training, but to be able to like let the stylist know how to be prepared for those situations. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I want to bring it back to sort of the really positive part of when you get a chance to sit down with someone to build a relationship. I mean, what do you think? Like, let's just say someone's getting a regular cut. What would that time span be to you? Is that 6 weeks? Is that 4 weeks? Is that 8 weeks? What is that? What date comes to mind or span?
Yeah. I think it depends. I usually say it's based on the haircut. And what I mean by that is like a men's cut or a short woman's pixie. It's probably going to be 4 weeks tops, right?
Okay. Okay.
Because
So
they grow out of shape fast.
right.
Yeah.
So, you've got 52 weeks in a year, and let's just say it's 6 weeks, maybe not
Hmm.
four, but let's just say it's six. That's 9 times ish, that you might interact with them in a year. That's more than their dentist. That's more than their doctor. That's more than, a lot of people that have pretty big roles in their life. I just think about the positivity you can inject in someone's life if you get 9 times a year, you get to talk with them for 45 minutes. You can really change their life in a positive way. And I just think about how you can have people who look forward to spending time with you and they're paying you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's a huge win-win. So let's end with this. Maybe share a story or a story or two, if you have more than one, of really positive memories you have when you were behind the chair of either clients that came in and you're like, it was just awesome. Every time they came in, we had such a good time. And they were totally different and they had a different kind of business, but it was just great because this. And then maybe a story of when you were able to be a part of celebrating something with someone.
So I think I can think of multiple. That's a great example for both. But one that I think of is we had this client that would come in and he would, he came about every 4 weeks for a haircut. And he was one of those positive, energetic people, right? Just positive energy, came in, wanted to lift people up. And so he'd do that in kind of the whole salon. He'd talk with everybody and people just loved seeing him walk in because you knew it was going to be a positive experience, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's cool to have someone like that when you see him coming in, you're like, oh, this is going to be a great part of my day no matter what. And you can look at your day before you get started and your appointments, and you're like, it's like a bingo,
Nice.
bingo, that's going to be good.
Yeah.
And so having those experiences are great. I have another one that's similar. Like when I quit doing hair behind the chair a lot because I had to manage the businesses more, I had to do what I call my breakup with a lot of my clients, right? It's like, hey, I'm going to stop doing hair in a couple months, so I can maybe get you in one more time, and then I'll refer you to someone, right? And I remember having, it was a really powerful moment for me to see like the impact on people's lives. Like I didn't expect it to be as emotional for me as it was, because I'd have clients that done their hair for close to 20 years, some less, obviously, but some start crying and being like, oh my gosh, I'm going to miss you. And like, you realize the conversations you had all those years. And some of those weren't every 6 weeks, they were every 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
But you spent maybe multiple hours doing their color and cut, and just knowing that you had an emotional impact. It wasn't just about doing their hair. And you realize like it's bigger than that.
Yeah.
And then to your
how many of those people were like upset only because of the hair? Like, I'm guessing 0. They were like, no, I'm going to miss you.
Yeah.
Right. They weren't like, what am I supposed to do? You know what I mean? Like, they weren't mad at you. They were just like, oh, we're going to miss you. Right.
It's funny. So I got a couple of those that were mad about like the hair. I'll give you a great example.
Funny.
This one, she literally told me to F off after I told her, like angrily.
Because you quit?
Because I told her I wasn't going to be doing hair. Like I said, hey, I've got to, I had several schools, a bunch of salons.
That's
I'm like,
funny.
I've got to focus more on the running the business and not being in the business.
Yeah.
And
so she felt like you were dumping her.
Yeah. And she calmed down, obviously, after the first few minutes. And then she's like, I apologize for saying that. And she said it. It took me years to find you. I love how you do my hair.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot about the technical. But the interesting part is she sent me a card to my hair school there. A few weeks later, I was in there and I opened a card from her, and she talked about the friendship part.
Yeah.
So in the moment, she was focused on, I love how you do my hair and how am I going to replace this? But it was one of the most heartfelt, sweet cards I received from a client about like, hey, you're a great person. I'm so grateful for all the years I did get to have with you, getting to know you, Yeah. And that was really cool. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
You had shared maybe a time a mom shared something pretty powerful with you.
Yeah. And this is kind of the other part when someone is able to bring in some information that is really positive. Like she came in and I'd done her hair many times, and we started off just talking, and she seemed kind of emotional, and I couldn't tell what it was. And she was kind of like, went through a consultation, and I kind of asked her, hey, what's new? Because seemed like she's going to tear up and stuff. She started kind of crying, and she was like, but it was like tears of joy, actually, because when she explained her situation, it was so cool to hear. She's like, she had a son that has autism and is pretty much nonverbal. And he had asked her for a fork for his hot dog that day. And just like the flood of emotion she had hearing him speak to her. And it was like a really powerful experience for her, and for her to be able to come in and share that was
Yeah.
really cool to be a part of and like celebrate that milestone for her and her son in her life. It was really, really powerful.
It's
And
interesting to
I'm
think.
not. It feels like I'm not doing it justice, but hearing her tell it and
No,
the
no, no.
experience
I
is
think what's
really, really
interesting,
cool.
I think it's great. I think it's great.
Yeah.
What's interesting is like how close to the surface that was for her. In the same way that you could like someone was carrying a burden and they
Yeah.
just were like, I just wish someone would just scratch a little bit and then I could tell them. I wish someone would just open the door a little bit so I could let this thing out, this burden. But for her, it was a blessing.
Yeah.
She's like, I just wish people would know how great something just happened. It's like someone finds out they're pregnant. Someone just gets engaged, right? Someone has a grandkid. It's like they're just dying for people to ask, "Is that a ring?" Or
Yeah. Yeah.
you seem different. I mean, it's like, is that a baby bump? Oh, yes, it is. You know what I mean? Which guys never ask that question, by the way.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, yeah, right. Well, and that's true. It's testimony to the impact you can have in the industry. And I think the larger lesson is two things. One, if you want your business to grow, and everyone does, then get good at this, right? And if the other part of it, if you want to enjoy your job more, get good at this, right? It will improve your enjoyment. It will also be really good for business, and that's why chair talk is really it's an important skill, and it is a skill. It's a soft skill, but it's a skill, right? To really master. So Nathan, thank you for guiding us in that. And I hope people will take what we talked about today and apply it. Like today, apply it tomorrow. Ask someone, tell me your favorite toy when you were a kid. Tell me your favorite teacher. I mean, find positive things to pull out. There's probably 1,000 positive questions you could ask instead of talking about the weather, the economy, or politics, So,
Right.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So thanks as always, Nathan.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks so much, Andy.